Alright, so what's up everybody? Today we have the review video for my 2015 Yamaha Bolt. So we're going to get into it pretty quick, but before we do, just got done cutting the grass, nose is itching. So anyway, before we just jump right into it, for those of you who stumble across this video that aren't subscribers, never seen a video of mine before, there's a lot of things I could say about my videos, how bad they suck. But anyway, so I'll just go over real quick, short and sweet, the last 10 years or so, plated bikes only. So I've owned a KLX 250S, put a few thousand miles on that bike, then went to DRZ 400, put a few thousand miles on that bike. Then I went Harley Sportster 883, believe 06 model, 06, 08, something like that, fuel injected, put 10,000 miles on that Sportster 883. Then I went Victory cross country, had that bike for 3 years and just under 20,000 miles. Then I went KLR 650, had that bike for 3 to 4 years, did just under 19,000 miles. While owning the KLR, I went Versys 650 with intentions to sell the KLR, decided I didn't like the Versys over the KLR, sold the Versys after 1,700 miles, and here we are at Yamaha Bolt. So this is a 2015 R-Spec. R-Spec meaning it has the upgraded nitrogen piggyback shocks from Olin's on the rear. Even though they are nitrogen piggybacks, they are still only, to my knowledge, preload adjustable. And that is the bike. I'll get a picture of it or a walk around of it at some point during this ride. It has been debadged, other than a little Yamaha logo that's on the top triple, and there's a star logo on the rear fender. Other than those two decals and one engine cover saying Yamaha on it, it's completely debadged. Don't even know what stickers were on the tank. Stock, but I know they're no longer there. So starting at the front, don't know what size wheel we're rolling on. Hopefully the audio's okay. It's really kind of gusty out. It don't seem gusty based off the trees, but anyway. So not sure what we're rolling on up front. If I had to guess, 18-inch, maybe 19-inch, 18-inch. And then back from there, front suspension, non-adjustable. I don't think it's any different on the R-Spec than it is on the standard Bolt. Don't quote me on that. And then coming on further back, getting into the meat and potatoes of the bike, you have a 950cc. It's really 942 for being exact. Air-cooled V-twin. It holds 4 quarts of oil. It is at 950 cc's for you standard guys on the Harleys. That's 52 cubic inch, 54 cubic inch. I think 54. I looked it up, but it's been a few days. I think that's 54 cubic inches. So it rests somewhere right in between the 883 Sportster and the 1200. And it's pretty much a copy of a Sportster in every way. You know, wheelbase, it's very similar all over. Easily mistaken for a Sportster at a glance, I suppose. I would have never mistaken it for one, but I put 2 tanks of gas in it, and the second time I was pumping gas, the guy asked me if it was a Harley. If it wouldn't have been for that, I probably wouldn't have brought that up. But very Sportster-esque in design. It is belt drive out the rear. It is a fuel injected bike, as everything nowadays should be. If you're still making a carbureted bike, lucky you, you're a dinosaur. Nothing wrong with carburetors, but for the money I'm paying nowadays, everything should be fuel injected. Rides very much like a Sportster. The Sportster I had similar bars on it, similar seating position with mid controls, although I did eventually put forward controls on it. So very similar seating position. I don't have seat height specs for you to compare with. Any difference is going to be minuscule. Coming up from the engine, talking more about the specs, we've got a 3.2 or 3.4, I think it's 3.2 gallon tank. And I do have one gripe with the tank so far, and it's not necessarily the small capacity so much as it is the fuel light. So I've only had to put gas in this bike twice. I've only had it 2 weeks, and I've only had the fuel light come on once, which supposedly, from everything I've read and seen on the Facebook groups and the forums, you know, that happens somewhere around 100 miles for most people, which seemed a hair low to me based off fuel economy numbers. And then also, according to the owner's manual, the light isn't supposed to come on until 2.7 gallons. So if I'm getting 50 miles to the gallon, you can do the math, it should be well over 100 miles before the light comes on. So my light came on the other day while I was riding home from work, and I had 117 miles on the clock. Whether that was a true 117, I mean, I can go ahead and tell you it wasn't, because the speedometer is off by about 5 at highway speeds. 75 on my GPS is 70 according to the factory speedo. So not the most accurate 117 mile measurement, but according to the odometer, 117. Now that should mean that I burnt 2.7 gallons of gas. I've got 3.2. I was kind of worried if I was going to make it the next 20-ish miles to the gas station, but I went ahead and risked it. Took me 15 miles to get to the gas station after the light came on at 117. The bike only held 2.42 gallons on a pump that I use regularly at that particular station, by the way. So I don't think the pump's wrong. I filled up many of 5-gallon cans at that pump, and it is pretty much at the 5-gallon mark on the can. So if it's off, it's not off by enough to matter. So I don't know if that's typical for most bolts, but for this one anyway, the light seems to come on at, say, 2.25 gallons at the latest, which came out to 52 miles to the gallon. I think it was 52 miles to the gallon, but I still had much further to go. That's my only gripe so far, not necessarily the tank capacity so much as when the fuel light comes on compared to when it says it's going to come on. Now again, hopefully it repeats. I could care less when it comes on as long as it repeats that measurement multiple times with, you know, something I can believe. If it comes on earlier than when the manual says, that's fine with me. That just means I've got longer until I actually run out. But if it's sporadic and doesn't consistently come on at the same time, then that's less than ideal. Time will tell. So now that we've kind of went over the specs of the bike a little bit, give you the general gist of it. If you're doing bolt research and you stumble across this video, chances are it didn't tell you anything you didn't already know. So my opinion of the bike, from someone who has owned all the bikes that I have, I like it. I like it more than a Sportster. It's a lot smoother than a Sportster. It has, at this point, I have done a few things to it, 2 things to be exact. Drilled out the baffle and the stock muffler, and I have hard mounted the handlebar risers. The handlebar risers are rubber mounted from the factory to help with vibration, but they have a lot of give and play in them. I didn't like that. I prefer hard mounted, and it's just fine having them hard mounted. I can't notice any extra vibration through the bars. You know, maybe some at high speed, maybe, but really I can't tell the difference. The only difference I can really tell is when I go to pick the bike up off the kickstand, I don't feel like my bars are connected via a piece of rubber, because they would, I don't know if it was just mine, but they were a little more flimsy than I would like. That's the whole reason I hard mounted them, and I'm happy with that so far. I have no intentions of changing that. If you go with bigger, taller handlebars, apes or taller risers, which I'm eventually planning on doing, then you have to do away with the hard mount anyway, because you end up with so much more leverage due to the higher handlebars and or the taller risers that you really feel and notice the play. So like I said, you pretty much have to do that anyway. I've got us a couple dirt bikes for sale. TTR 125 and a DRZ 125. Same bike. So those two are the only modifications I've done to the bike thus far, other than adding the factory Yamaha seat and pegs, passenger seat, passenger pegs. And I've got some other plans for the bike. I don't know how quickly I'm going to get around to them. Windshield, bar risers. I like the stock bars, but I do want taller risers. I like my arms to be a little more parallel from the shoulder with the ground, instead of drooping down at the shoulder and then parallel out. Personal preference. Nothing's wrong with the factory seating position. It's very comfortable. I'm 5'7". That's part of the reason it's comfortable. If you're 6 foot tall, you're probably definitely not going to like the seating position, at least for an extended period of time. If you're bar hopping, you're only sitting on it for 20 minutes, then you can probably live with it. What else? And it does highway fine. I do find myself reaching for 6th gear. However, I should install a caveat there and let you know that the KLR that I owned for 4 years and 20,000 miles, I reached for 6th gear on it literally every time I rode it, and I was already running a larger front sprocket on it. So I feel like it's not that I'm reaching for 6th gear out of necessity. With a stock exhaust, you really can't tell how hard the engine's revving at those speeds because of the wind noise, not having a windshield on here. But I feel like it's just leftover habit from the Victory and having a 6-speed, because the bike cruises highway speeds just fine. The engine's dead smooth. Another thing I like about this engine that I did not mention is it has tappet style valve adjusters, which is great, which means valve inspections and adjustments are much easier to do at home, just because you don't have to have a shim kit. So I really like that. And I mean, yeah, that's the basic gist of it. There's not much more to say. It's Sportster-esque. They copied a Sportster. They did a really good job of copying a Sportster. It's, in my opinion, a better Sportster than a Sportster. If you're buying a Sportster because you want the Harley name, I mean, yeah, you can't replace that if that's what you're looking for in another brand. If you're buying a Harley just because of the name and you end up on a Sportster, good luck. Your buddies are going to give you crap for it. Maybe not, depends on how good your buddies really are to you. And that's more of a joke. I loved my Sportster. I had no problems with it. Unlike the Sportster, this engine does use one oil, which is good. If you've never owned a Harley, they have change-driven primaries on just about every bike that's at least not water-cooled. So the V-Rod and the Street Series, those bikes I don't think have change-driven primaries. I've never owned one. I've never looked at one closely. But the change-driven primary, you've got split oil, 2050 in the primary, and I always ran 1040 in the engine. But I just did the first service on this. It was a total pain to get to the oil filter. There's not enough room to grab it with your hand at all. You got to have a filter wrench. I would recommend just buying a strap wrench. If you don't know what that is, Google it. It's just a big strap you throw over. And get one that's got a nylon strap. I'm not a fan of the rubber ones and that have their own handle. The strap wrench, just a socket fits in it. But the ones that have their own handle, you may or may not even be able to get that rubber strap in between the engine and the oil filter on this bike. It's not a very large gap. And it's going to be a quick ending because I've made it to, I'm actually riding over to a buddy's house. We may go ride here in a minute. And so I'm going to cut it short. But I feel no need to ramble on. It's very Sportster-esque. If you've ever rode a Sportster, you're going to feel right at home. If you've never rode a Sportster, as long as you're not 6'2" or bigger, you're probably going to feel right at home. It's a great bike. It's comfortable. And I really look forward to bringing you guys some more content on it. But that is my quick summary, review, call out of the specs, whatever you want to call it, of this machine.
Still the same old bike, huh?
Ain't nothing wrong with that. '96 Wide Glide, 60,000 miles. Looks brand new. How many miles that thing got on it now?
5.
I thought it was probably getting close to 60.
Yeah, after we quit riding, I ain't riding none.
I wish I still had some of my earlier bikes. It saved me a lot of money swapping.
What was the one after the Victory?
KLR.
Was it?
Sportster, then Victory. It was DRZ 400, KLS 250, Sportster, Victory, KLR, Versys 650. Sold the Versys, kept the KLR. Now Yamaha Bolt.
Go ahead.
Shoot, I don't even know where we're going. I don't even know where we're going. That by the old Fred's, just after you cross the river.